excited about spring practice starting tomorrow. I think our players and all of our coaches are very excited and anxious to get out there on the field. And I think really pleased with our off-season workouts. Coach Tremaine Carroll and his staff have done a great job with the guys, and the guys have really bought into what we're doing and how we're doing it in the weight room. And then we just finished our 8 United mat drill sessions, pretty intense. And the difference with those as compared to the other workouts is our full-time coaches are actually on the field with the guys, leading them through some different drills, and meant to be very kind of intense and see how they respond. And I was really pleased, probably the first time in the 13 years that I've done some version of mat drills where the guys were like excited and a lot of energy during warm-ups before we ever got out there to the mat drill session. So that was just a really good sign of I think the guys are eager and excited about a new beginning and a fresh start. Just a couple changes I wanted to mention and address before we talk about spring practice. Really excited. We've hired a new director of nutrition. Our nutritionist is Alexa Rodriguez. She's coming from University of North Carolina, and that's a really important role for us that we have not had here in the past. And I just think how we fuel our bodies with our players, I think, is critical. Number one, how they're eating their meals here on campus and while they're away from here, the education piece that goes into that, and then also the supplements, shakes, and fruit, and all the different type of foods that we can provide for them before and after practice, just coming right off the practice field, having some of that there for them. I can remember at Clemson, probably 2.5, 3 years ago, Clemson hired a nutritionist to work with the football team, and I was able to see a drastic improvement in our guys' bodies and development physically from that added position. So really excited about having Alexa here. She's done a great job so far, and I know she'll be a big asset for our players moving forward. And also I've added 2 more titles to 2 of our full-time coaches. Alan Mobridge, along with being our offensive line coach, will also be our assistant head coach, and will be able to help me in that role. And then Jules Montanar will also be our recruiting coordinator, or on the staff recruiting coordinator, along with being the corners coach. And then maybe 2 changes on the roster that some of you may be aware of. Trey Lang, outside linebacker, defensive end, is leaving, and really just looking for a fresh start. And then Sione Tuatupo is a transfer defensive lineman, just got here in January, that we were really excited about. And unfortunately, due to some family situation, it was a situation where he really needs to get back closer to home and finish his career there, and something that's I know he wanted to be here but needed to be there because of some family obligations. So outside of that, I really won't discuss those 2 guys any further moving forward. And then big thing for me going into spring practice, I really have 3 goals that our staff has for our team leading into spring. Number one, we want our players to learn what to do. That's obviously it's pretty self-explanatory. They need to know what to do. The next thing, we want our players to learn how to do it, and then why we do it that way. So just that first bullet point is we want our players to learn what to do, how to do it, and why we do it that way. The second thing, I think the second goal for spring for me and our staff is really to evaluate our roster and really to be able to get guys in the right places. That's probably the one I'm most excited about, because as I've shared in here before, I still have not watched one play from last season, practice or game. So to me, I wanted the first day of spring practice to be the first time that I saw any of these guys in their college career, and really to give each and every one of them a fresh, clean start, and really let the depth chart kind of build itself, and that's what will happen. So that's a big goal. And then the last goal is really just to develop the chemistry, develop our identity, and really to keep developing and building on the culture that we want within our team. And there's only so much you can do of that through the the winter workouts and mat drills, but really you got to get out on the field as a team, going through drills, going through some good 11 on 11, get have some adversity and kind of get coached, see how guys respond. I mean, I think that's a big part of what we're looking for this spring. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Coach, it's been 3 months now since you arrived. How has that time gone for you? Gone real fast, or?
It's been fast, but a good fast. I think I made the comment in here at signing day. I've been saying this a lot lately. After being here for now 3 months, I guess, going into the third month, I'm more excited and more optimistic, more convinced of what we can do here within this program. And that's probably rare, to be honest, going into a going into a new head coaching job where you didn't have success the year before. Usually I've had several buddies that have kind of left being coordinators to go be a head coach for the first time, and I know one in particular called me after 2 months and they said, I made a huge mistake. He said, I took the wrong job. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's a lot of things that aren't in place, but bottom line, people don't care. Even if we win, they're not going to care. And what I've learned being around here is there is a lot of people, not just within our team and our locker room. There's a lot of those young men that do care and want to win and want to do it the right way. There's a lot of people within the athletic department that do care, that want it done the right way, want to have success. It's important within the university and then within our fans, donors, community. I mean, I can't tell you how many people that I've met that are just genuinely excited and optimistic about the future. So that, to me, I realize where we are, but to have the potential to really raise the bar, I think is probably what most excites me after meeting with so many different people the last few months.
Jeff, some of your guys have gone on social media and talked about the rigors of mat drills. Anything you care to share with us about what goes into that?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's probably 1/10 rigorous as it used to be. Back in the day, mat drills back in the day, you do it inside, and you would truly have those wrestling mats, and it would be an hour of just all of the stuff that you would do on the mat, and how it's kind of grown. A lot of places do some version of mat drills, and really what it's grown into is it still is set up as a county fair where there's 8 stations, and you have the players kind of divided up by their positions into 8 groups, and each coach will be at a certain station, and then the groups will move around, so the coaches get an opportunity to see every player as they come through. And the stations are very strenuous, but also football related. That's probably what's changed the most. The old school mat drills was just 4-point seat roll and 4-point wave, and roll it over on go and sprint, finish through the line. And now there's still a version of that, but really each drill, each station has a football related skill as part of it. And really what you're looking for is who can finish, right? Every single drill has a finish line, and it's like, do you strain through the finish or do you glide through the finish? And the drills are set up that if you don't finish the correct way to our expectation, then everybody starts the drill over again. And then, so that's kind of how it goes around. And then after each mat, I'll get together with the staff out there on the field, and I'll ask each coach who's the best guy that you have. They'll give me a name, and then I'll ask the other 7 coaches that had stations, said, anybody have a problem with them? I say, yep, not good in my drill, okay? Once they went through and every single coach said thumbs up, then I wrote that name down and kind of recognized them after practice. And then the next mat, I would put those young men in a gold jersey to kind of be the leaders in their group. And so all of a sudden you start hearing, sometimes there's a fresh name on there, but sometimes it's some of the same names. I'm gonna keep those names internal right now. But it's good as a coaching staff to kind of to see it, among the team who kind of separates themselves. It's also mental, physical toughness, push through, endurance, coachability. When you're tired and you're in that 4th quarter after there's 8 stations, so every 2 stations are a quarter. So when we finish the 6th station, getting ready for station 7, everybody's holding 4 fingers up. We're in the 4th quarter, and it's how do we finish the fourth quarter. And if it's not good enough, we start over. And so, just really being very detailed and laying out exactly what the expectation is, and then holding them to that expectation and to that standard. And I would say overall, I'm very pleased with how the guys responded to that and where we are now coming out of that program.
Having that internal competition, did you notice the overall level raise up a notch?
Yeah, so some of the stuff that maybe y'all saw on social media was the team competition that we do at the end, whether it's tug of war or some of the relays and different things. And there's individual competitions within each drill. There's a winner and a loser, and then also at the very end when we finish, when we get the teams together, most of the times we had broken up offense and defense, we'd have a winner and a loser there, and really just kind of seeing them again, kind of building that camaraderie and chemistry and the competitiveness that, hey, just like when we come out here and do our football drills, every single drill there's like a winner and a loser. And there's a do it right, you either get a check or you get an X. There's not anywhere in between. It's one or the other. And so it just has to be all the way down to your drill work, all the way through 11 on 11 in practice. I mean, that's how detailed and really kind of the focus that I want our guys to have about the importance of competition. But to answer your question, yes, I saw a lot of competitiveness in the group.
How much of your offense do you expect to put in the spring?
Well, that's a good question. I think we know where what our initial plan is kind of going in. I think, the initial plan is we'd love to get, potentially about 65 to 70% of the offense in, and I think defensively is about the same place. But we're not going to hold ourselves to that. If we get in a week in and we're still having some issues, again, it goes back to we were talking about early, knowing what to do, how to do it, and why we do it. There's kind of 3 different levels. It's kind of like taking pre-algebra, algebra 1, and then algebra 2. And so you have to hit a certain benchmark before you can move on to the next concept or the next level within your installation. So we'll kind of see how they do. I think it's good for us. We have 2 days before we go on spring break to kind of get a base understanding. And they've already been doing a lot of meetings and walkthroughs that were allowed within our 8-hour week here the last couple weeks. So there's a little bit of, it's not like they're just learning today and tomorrow for the very first time, but we'll see how it goes. If we need to adjust that a little bit, we will. But part of it too for our staff is, obviously Coach Weiss coming in with what he's done in the past, and we've met a lot, some things that I did at Clemson that we're going to do here, and trying to figure out how that blends together. It's kind of a little bit of a lab out there, if you will. So it's not something that's just cut and dry. We already have it laid out all the way through the end. There's going to be some adjustments, but that's what makes it fun too for the coaches and players.
Without having the chance to go through a full practice yet, what have you learned about the team, this group of guys over the last 3 months?
Yeah, I think we've had some really good team meetings, been some good interaction in there. I think the biggest thing that I learned from the guys, number one, the majority, and I'm just kind of speaking for the group, obviously there's outliers on both sides probably, and some of it I won't know until we get out there and start going through this next step. But overall, what I learned is number one, for the large majority of them, they truly care and they want to win and they want to do it right. And so it's been easy buy-in from the majority of that group. I'd say that's number one. Number two, again, it's I don't want to make too many predictions or anything because we haven't had a football out there for one play yet. But athletically, I really like where we are athletically. Guys being able to move around, speed, change of direction. That's what I've noticed. And then, I think that probably the third thing that I've seen is there is a desire for them to do more than has been done in the past. I don't mean just maybe what the expectations were, but I mean maybe on their own of doing more. I had administrator text me yesterday leaving the building and just said, hey, for the last 3 days I've seen your guys out there on the field on their own throwing and catching, and I haven't seen that a lot around here the last 2 years. And I've heard about these things. We're not allowed to be out there. We're not allowed to kind of force them into doing it. They have to do it on their own. But, you know, the best teams that I've been around, they have some leadership and ownership that they set their own practices and meetings, if you will. And I've already started to see that before we've even started our first spring practice. So for me, that's a really good sign. We got a long way to go. It won't all be solved by the end of spring, but I think I'm more optimistic at this point than probably where I expected to be from the day that I took the job, not knowing what I was walking into.
How about penalties? This has been one of the most penalized teams in the country. When do you start trying to correct that? How do you correct that?
Yeah, well, number one, it goes back to the first day they walked into the weight room and the expectations, and you know, whenever they're given an assignment and orders of exactly what it's going to look like, that they do it exactly right. And if they, you know, step over the line, if they don't start where they're supposed to, they get a rep out of order or anything, then it's everybody start over and there's some discipline involved. So again, that's why your strength coach is such a critical piece, because your strength coach gets them before we get them, because we're all out on the road recruiting in January. We're not allowed to be in there with them. And then the next piece that goes into, that's a big part of what mat drills are, is there's direction given, and can you follow direction when you get tired and you're a little bit mentally and physically fatigued? Can you follow directions? If we say touch with your right hand on the white line, and you either don't touch the line or you touch it with the wrong hand, then that doesn't count. So it's kind of laying out that standard. And then same thing we talked about in our team meeting this morning, of exactly what the expectations are for practice. You know, we don't ever walk on the field or walk off the field. Anytime that we're going out on the field, we jog out on the field. Anytime our rep's over and they go 3 and out, then we run all the way off the field through the white line. We don't get 1 yard before the white line and then walk that last step. The whole group that goes back out there, does up downs, and then we get off the field. So it's a lot of these little things that lead to the big things. And then within that, technically, it'll be more some of our scrimmage days. We'll have some of the conference officials that'll be out there to actually give us, you know, kind of let us have some practice with that this spring. But for me, I can't speak for every coach, but I haven't coached a player in my 14 years of college coaching and 4 as a high school coach. I haven't coached a player that has been undisciplined off the field in their personal life, but then all of a sudden they walk out on the practice field or the game field and they're a disciplined player. And so that's kind of what my message has been to our guys all spring is, you know, being on time for class, being at class, being on time for your tutor appointments, doing what you're supposed to, being prepared, not just showing up, but like, you know, one of our team commandments is, you know, go to class and be engaged. It doesn't just say go to class, right? My 4-year-old daughter, Savannah, I could take her over here to chemistry class and sit her on the front row, right? She'd sit there and play on her iPad for an hour and leave, and she didn't learn anything. So it's all the little things. Are you showing up with a you know, pen and notebook in your class, ready to take notes and be engaged? And so it's that discipline piece. You know, we're checking some things that maybe haven't been done in the past. Is we're checking their classes to make sure that they're there on time. And if they're not, then 6 a.m. the next morning, they're in the weight room and they're doing, you know, 200 flights on the Stairmaster until all of a sudden they figure out that, you know, we're being serious. And what I've seen is the group, by and large, you're going to have a few that test you a little bit, but by and large, the guys have risen to the new expectations and things that we're asking of them.
Coach, you've been around the players, of course, but tomorrow the curtain rises in earnest. Anxious, nervous, emotions on your part?
Probably, I mean, the word gets overused, and I've probably used it more in the last 3 months than I've used in my entire life combined. Just really excited, to be honest. That's probably just the best word, because it is the first time. I was laughing with my dad. We were somewhere this weekend, and I said, we're just really excited and optimistic, to be honest, after being here for 3 months, going, and we fell into a great job and a great opportunity. That's kind of what our comments were. We said, now we'll see if we still feel that way after Tuesday's practice, right? Because we haven't watched, we don't know exactly what it looks like. So, but I think the unknown, I think the fact that you got an entire new coaching staff, every single position coach is coming in. This is going to be their first practice here. And then every player, this is their first practice with the new coaches, with a new offense, with a new defense. I'm sure there'll be some butterflies by everybody, but we're just going to jump in and go to it. You know, we won't win any games just tomorrow, right? It's going to be the collective effort of all of these days that we add up. But you got to start somewhere, and to me, the biggest thing is really to set the standard, let everybody know what the expectation is, and then hold everybody to that standard.
You mentioned your father. Have you taken some things from him, maybe from Dabo Swinney, with respect to how you're conducting spring practice?
Obviously, for sure, there's been a lot of things that I've taken from. You know, I'm not coming down to South Florida and trying to turn South Florida into Clemson. I don't think that would work, to be quite honest. I think each university, each football program has. It's a unique entity of itself, but I do believe strongly that there are some core philosophical ideas and principles that work no matter where you are. If you're coaching football in Alaska or down in Key West, I think there's some key fundamental things that are critical to have success. A lot of those I'm bringing over from Clemson, but exactly how we do it, and I got new coaches, I'm kind of listening to them. And I'm open to new ideas, and that's one thing Coach Swinney did a great job of, is each year, even though we had a lot of success, it was like, hey, let's look at what we're doing, look at what's good, what's bad, what can we do different, and every year there's 20% that we're trying something new, maybe a new technique, a new part of the scheme, a new way to meet and walk through. And so for me, getting together with coaches that have been successful at their places, it's kind of listening to all that within the framework of how we want it. So that's what we've been doing as a coaching staff the last 2 months or 2 weeks, really getting ready for practice and how we want to do that moving forward. And then as far as my dad, you know, he'll give me a little note every once in a while. Hey, you may think about this here and there. But you know, the biggest thing, I've gotten that question a lot. It's a great question, but it's not like I couldn't tell you about like these 3 meetings that my dad and I had where I sat down across from him. He like gave me like 10 bullet points. It's the everyday interaction, it's the comment here or there, and that's why it's critical to have someone in that role, and why I'm very fortunate that he's going to be here as our chief of staff, because he's around, he's watching it every day, and so I can kind of get going down a road, and he can bring in a fresh perspective, different maybe viewpoint or something for me to consider, as opposed to, you know, if he was off in South Carolina somewhere and would, you know, come down and watch practice one day, but really wasn't here in the weeds. It wouldn't be as effective, so I'm definitely going to lean on him, as we move forward.
Do you feel a disappointment this team has had in the last couple of years is feeling that they haven't lived up to what they can do, is helping to motivate them this year to show that they are better than what they've been?
Yeah, I do think there's a pride there. I think any player that has a chance to be successful has to have, it starts with having a little bit of pride in yourself, and if you don't care at all, then you're not going to be very good. I mean, we got to have they got to care to some level, right? And so that is what I've seen, is that they do care. I think they're a lot more eager to listen and to buy into what we're talking about, because a lot of our coaches are coming from programs that have had success and very, especially the last couple of years. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, you have to experience the other side of that, of maybe not having success, to really kind of open your eyes and go, you know what, what we've been doing hadn't been working, and we need to try something different. And now that's kind of what this opportunity is a fresh, life is full of new beginnings. That's what makes it fun. And if it was just all about what's been done in the past, it'd be pretty boring and not a lot of excitement. So for me, it's, even for our staff, this is a new beginning, and each day it's a new opportunity to grow and to learn. And I think for our players, if they see this within our program, I mean, when the leadership here made a change, they didn't just change the head coach. And I mean, there's a lot of new people, a lot of new things going on. This really is a time, my overall feeling about where we are right now. And again, I haven't done a lot of research because number one, what happened in the past, does not have a huge impact on the future, but I've done a lot of listening. Just my overall, thoughts is maybe when this program got started, 23 years ago, I think there's probably, easy to say, there's a lot of excitement and energy that goes with that. And obviously, Coach Levitt did a great job, he and his staff, of really, taking the program from being in trailers, right, just starting a program from scratch to maybe the peak there in 2007 being number 2 in the country. And so I feel like as a program, there was a lot of good momentum early, and then somewhere over the last few years, which for whatever reasons doesn't really matter, that momentum has kind of slowed down. And so now this boulder, if you will, that had been moving, the boulder of momentum that had been moving, has kind of been sitting still for the last year, 2 years, whatever. And I feel like there's a lot of people, number one, starting in our locker room with our players, number 2, with the support here in the athletic department, number 3, with the leaders at the university, number 4, and our students, and number 4 with the donors and fans, and number 5 with the other people in the Tampa Bay community. I feel like there's a lot of people now that are standing by this boulder looking at each other, and they're ready to push. And that here over these next 4 or 5 years, we're really about to it's not just getting ready for a new season, if you will. It's really a new era. We're going into a new decade. I made the comment, before that, my goal is that 10 years from now, we look back at this decade and say it was the best decade in South Florida football history. I mean, that's really my vision and my goal. And I feel like, I guess the reason I'm optimistic is because there's a lot of people that share that sentiment. I think it's probably easy to feel that way when there's a new coach coming in, maybe from a successful place, but I feel like I can tell what's genuine and what's just kind of, hey, great, glad you're here, look forward to watching you. There's a lot of people, the same reason I was talking about the players that have kind of gone through some of that disappointment, same reason they're excited. I think there's a lot of people that this university matters to them. They care about having a successful athletics program, a successful football program, and I think they look at this as our next big opportunity to really take the next step, and that's what I feel we're about to do.
Once you hit the practice field, do you anticipate that the defense is going to be something that can come together more quickly than the offense? The offense is going to take a little bit longer?
Yeah, I really don't have any expectations to that at all. To be honest, I don't even know what we were good at last year, whether it was offense or defense. I really hadn't spent a lot of time because I honestly, I want to go into it kind of with a very clear mind, and so expectation-wise of who may be ahead of the other, I've had years at Clemson where the offense was ahead. I've had years where the defense was ahead. So we'll just kind of see. That'll be the fun part, to kind of see how that goes, and then how the other group responds, and then they come out the next scrimmage and they have the best scrimmage, and that's kind of what you do in spring ball. You just want to be sure that you're seeing a group that responds, but I don't have an expectation one way or the other of where we may be or which group may be ahead or behind.
Jeff, having not seen these guys last year, how do you determine ones go out there?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, we did not have a lottery. That would have been pretty cool, right, if we had done that. Maybe too late to do that, I don't know. The assistant coaches, they watched video, they did their research, they've looked at things, and so I've kind of left that on them. They've turned in today, they turned into me. We're going to go over here in just 2 hours maybe as a staff and go through the depth chart, and I'm gonna get them to tell me why they wanted to start this guy here and this guy here. What I told our team this morning, I said, you can take these depth charts that you're gonna see tomorrow morning when you show up, and you can throw them in the trash for all I care, because they're gonna change. I said, I'm gonna keep the first depth chart we have in the spring, and I'm gonna have the final depth chart that we leave the spring, and I would guarantee you, through my experience, especially in this situation, that over 50% of it will change. And so that's, we obviously got to have somewhere to start, right? When we go, first group goes out there, we can't practice with 88 guys in the field at one time, but really it's going to change. It'll change practice to practice based off their effort. We're going to grade everything from practice. So a big thing for me is the effort. So we grade what we call loafs. And so there's going to be a manager running behind the play. Every time we have good on good offense versus defense, there'll be a manager with a flag, and he stands 10 yards behind the quarterback, and as soon as the play happens and the ball moves downfield, he'll run into the picture, and he waves the flag as soon as he hears the whistle. That's not for the players that are on the field to watch, and our coaches don't watch. The whole purpose of that is so that when our coaches come back up here after lunch and grade the video, obviously they can see when the play starts, but they want to see that backside linebacker who's 30 yards away from the ball, did he pull up before the whistle was blown? Well, if you don't have, because we don't have audio on our regular Exos videos that we watch, it's quiet, there's no audio. And so sometimes the players say, oh, no, I heard a whistle. I'll say, okay, well, so we answered that question. So we have the flag man. So the flag man waits, he runs behind the play, and as soon as he hears the whistle, he waves it so the coach can stop the video and say, okay, you know, two of you guys stopped before the flag got blown. We're watching the video on tape. Those are loafs. So I'll get a report every day of the loafs, and that'll be the biggest thing early on that'll move the depth chart more than the talent and ability, is really getting the guys to play to our standard, that what we're asking effort-wise. And that's something that's a trained. It's not something the guy, you know, can. I guess you probably could some way, but it's a habit, practice habit that goes to a game. You can't just turn it on and turn it off. It's something that has to be. I mean, just like, I mean, there's a reason, right, why we have to be here, right? Like, the guys go out on their own all summer and do throwing and catching, right? But they're probably not chasing the ball to the whistle and these details. And that's kind of what we as coaches kind of bring to it, is the kind of holding them accountable to the standards that we need, so that when you do turn on the video, you see everybody busting the ball out of habit, not out of having to think about it.
Jeff, I know you said you wouldn't go into specific names in terms of the gold jerseys and stuff like that, but were you at least encouraged by the number of guys that earned the jerseys?
I think there were actually, out of our entire roster, I think we added it up, 23 guys got a gold jersey at least one time, and there was, you know, probably 10 guys that got one 5 out of 8 sessions, so that really kind of separated themselves. But there were other guys that you know, had really good days, and so for us, it's just putting those together consecutively. But I could tell they wanted that. They wanted some feedback. They wanted to be recognized for doing good work. And I had to go, hey, Coach, I thought I worked hard today. What did I do wrong? I said, well, go see Coach Spencer, because he's dinged you. You got thumbs up from everybody else. It was his drill. Well, when you started, your foot was an inch over the line. I told you got to start behind the line. Oh, it's that serious. Yeah, it's that serious. Because it goes back to what we were talking about a little while ago, right? I mean, we're right there, it's 3rd and 3. We got him stopped, and the defensive end, his helmet's in the neutral zone. They get a first down, go down, score, win the game, right? And so you don't just coach that the next Sunday and say don't do that again. It starts, you know, in January, and kind of having that culture and level of expectation within your program.
Is there a effort underway, or would you like to get Clemson on a future schedule at some point?
Yeah, whenever that's great. Coach Sweeney said he would do it. So Michael Kelly texted Dan Radakovich and said, hey, I've already got a verbal from your head coach, and we can do a home and home. And so no, there's been some jokes about that. But I will say this about our schedule: there haven't been any, and those things are scheduled out so far in advance that I'm not sure it would matter if we were able to get together. I think Clemson just announced something with Georgia in the 2030s. So I think everything, but one thing I will say on that, since you brought that up, I am really, another reason for my excitement and optimism is really to look at our future schedule that we have. I mean, number one, the American Conference, like we talked about before, you know, I think it's in probably one of the best levels of competition that it's had since the conference came together. I mean, this past year we had 4 teams within the American Conference that finished ranked in the top 25. The conference that I came from had 1 in the top 25, and that was Clemson. And so I think that's really excited about that. But also the out-of-conference scheduling is incredible. I think a lot of that credit goes to Michael Kelly, just his connections. You know, I was talking to some donors the other day talking about that. I think Alabama comes here in 2023, and according to my research that I could do, the last non-conference true road game that Alabama has played was 2011 against Penn State. So Alabama doesn't go play road games unless it's in the SEC. That's it. And then they play neutral site kickoff classics. And so that's huge. To have Florida coming over here in 21, you know, that's huge. And, you know, Louisville and Miami in the future. So we're going to have, and probably what I'm most excited about with that is that we have a little bit of time to get ready for some of those games. Obviously, Texas is right off right out the gate, first game, but the rest of those, we got 2 and 3 years before these guys come down to Tampa. So for me, this is our time to really work and get ourselves in a position where we can truly compete at that level. But it's one thing to work hard, to have a chance to compete at that level, but it's another thing to have the opportunity to even play some of these teams that are out there. So, I think the preparation and then the opportunity, being able to meet up here over the next, couple of years, I know that gets our kids excited. I know recruits, that's a big deal. Donors that I've talked to, that's a big deal. So, I'm really pleased with, now that I've had a chance to really study and see everything, our out-of-conference scheduling moving forward.
Jeff, is there anybody who's gonna miss spring due to injury?
I think Armand Williams is the only one right now. Is that correct?
Jennings, all right.
Yeah, everybody else is gonna be able to do something. Armand Williams is the only one that we feel like is gonna be out all spring. But everybody else is gonna be able to participate. Some guys will have, Antonio Greer, he'll have like a shoulder so he can do some stuff, but maybe not contact, and we'll kind of see how it goes. There's probably 5 or 6 guys that are kind of in that limited, see how they do, but only one that won't be able to participate this spring.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you all.
appreciate it.
Thank you.